Teddy Roosevelt 2019 is not monetized. If you like this content, please like, subscribe, and share so more viewers will see this information. Thank you.
Open your eyes.
To show you how bad it's gotten with the liberal class and how Trump broke their brains, they now are, this is amazing, this new Fox poll shows the groups that most trust the CIA are liberals, Democrats, and Clinton voters.
John Brennan was confirmed to be the next head of the CIA. Reignited debate, of course, about the use of drones.
3 months after 42 civilians died, John Brennan stood up and said,
"There hasn't been a single collateral death."
An Obama administration estimate of the number of civilians killed by American counter-terror strikes is being called into question.
The Obama administration says it has killed more than 2,300 enemy combatants by counter-terrorist strikes. But it acknowledged the harsh reality that the once secret drone program may have been involved in anywhere from 64 to 116 civilian deaths since 2009 in areas outside active war zones. Now it's the lack of precision in those numbers that's getting scrutiny.
We're going to be asking really hard questions about these numbers. They're incredibly low for the number of people killed who are civilians.
Even the highest U.S. government estimates are significantly lower than death totals compiled by watchdog groups. One estimates a maximum of 801 civilian deaths.
Based on what Director Brennan has informed us, I have grave concerns that the CIA's search may well have violated Executive Order 12333, which prohibits the CIA from conducting domestic searches or surveillance.
As far as the allegations of CIA hacking into Senate computers, nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, we wouldn't do that.
The point is that you lied.
I know, you're right.
If I did something wrong, I will go to the president, and he is the one who can ask me to stay or to go.
77% of Democrats trust the CIA. What the?
I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It was like, we had entire training courses.
Only 22% don't. Hey, have you guys learned nothing from Jason Bourne? 64% of liberals trust the CIA, 22% don't. This is the enduring sickness of Russiagate and MSNBC. And if MSNBC was doing their job, that number should be 0. It should be 0% of liberals approve of the CIA.
We're going to begin tonight with something that you will not hear about on other television networks. You know how I know that? Because I've worked at other television networks. That's right. As the only network news anchor who happens to be Hispanic, I've always wanted to share with viewers the story of U.S. interventions in Latin America. I think it's salient. Not because I want to be critical, but because it's important to understand how we got where we are when it comes to the problems that still plague this part of the world.
¿De dónde son ustedes? ¿Y tú?
Guatemala. I think that if women and children are appearing at the United States-Mexico border, we can pretty much surmise that there's no place left for them to go.
The sounds you just heard have come to signify one of the darkest moments in recent American history.
What the United States has done in Latin America, right? It's important. It's because here's the story that CNN never let me tell. In fact, they never even let me put this information in the book that I was asked to write. First of all, let's start with El Salvador. 1940s, the United States and Great Britain bankroll and control the coffee plantations there in El Salvador. When Salvadoran citizens elect politicians who try to take back control of their resources, what do? We send in the Navy and essentially crush them. In 1960, some guy named Fabio Castillo, installed by the U.S., actually goes to the U.S. Congress and he thanks us for facilitating a coup that gave him power over an elected president. And all that was before the Salvadoran death squads that most of you know about that killed 80,000 people in the 1980s.
Mr. Adams, in 1991, you pleaded guilty to 2 counts of withholding information from Congress regarding your involvement in the Iran-Contra affair, for which you were later pardoned by President George H.W. Bush. I fail to understand why members of this committee or the American people should find any testimony that you give today to be truthful.
If I can respond to that.
It wasn't a question.
That
was not a question. That was I reserve the right to my time.
It is not right.
That was not a
This
question.
committee can attack
On February
a witness
8th,
who is not permitted to reply.
that was not a question. Thank you for your participation. On February 8th, 1982, you testified before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee about U.S. policy in El Salvador. In that hearing, you dismissed as communist propaganda report about the massacre of El Mozote, in which more than 800 civilians, including children as young as 2 years old, were brutally murdered by U.S.-trained troops. During that massacre, some of those troops bragged about raping a 12-year-old girl before they killed them. Girls before they killed them. You later said that the U.S. policy in El Salvador was a fabulous achievement. Yes or no, do you still think so?
From the day that President Duarte was elected in a free election to this day, El Salvador has been a democracy.
Now let's talk about Honduras. Going back to the 1920s and 30s again, the U.S. installs a dictator. The guy's name is Manuel Bonilla. He gives away most of the country's assets and resources to 2 companies, American Foods, now known as the Dole Food Company, and United Fruit Company. You know about them. They're now known as the Chiquita brand or the Chiquita banana brand. U.S. companies, with the help of the CIA, end up owning more than 1 million acres of this nation's absolute best lands.
Shows the groups that most trust the CIA are liberals, Democrats, and Clinton voters.
Most of it not even paid for. They divvy up the rest with global companies, and by the 1980s and today, Honduras is one of the poorest and most dangerous countries in the world. Guatemala now, 1950s. The country elects a very popular guy. His name is Jacobo Arbenz. Arbenz is this tall, blonde dude, right? He argues that Guatemalans should at least own part of their own lands, not all the American companies like American Fruit. So what he asks for is a fair distribution. When they hear about this, the CIA organizes a coup and removes this guy from office.
Groups that most trust the CIA are liberals.
Then, with the help of the U.S. Green Berets, they bribe military officials, they take over the radio stations, they distribute millions of anti-government leaflets and replace Arbenz with a general who supports the United Fruit Company. The CIA's actions ignite a civil war that lasts 40 years in Guatemala and results in the deaths of more than 150,000 people.
That if women and children are appearing at the United States-Mexico border, we can pretty much surmise that there's no place left for them to go.
The sounds you just heard have come to signify one of the darkest moments in recent American history. But it's a story that has roots that go back almost 40 years. The Central American immigrant population in the United States has increased more than tenfold since 1980, in no small part because of U.S. intervention in that region.
Open your